Hey guys, welcome back. My name is DJ Moose, and this is episode 2 of the build log of the Maxford USA Hughes H-1 racer. I've got some work done. You can see in the back here, got some work done on the tail end, and I wanted to kind of get some zoom in pics, show you the process. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's complicated, but it's not your typical ARF. There's some little intricacies, some things I found out, some correspondence I had with Maxford USA, and just kind of wanted to kind of show you what I found out, show you step by step how this tail end goes together, what about it is like a normal ARF and what isn't. So let's zoom in on the tail end and check it out. Hey guys, here we got a nice close-up of the tail end of the Hughes H1. Like most ARFs, the first step is to install the horizontal stabilizer. So there's a nice, already built in, a slot that really just slides into. So like most other ARFs, you can measure from the center and kind of test fit and measure and then peel back the covering. I went ahead and did that, and the manual says you can use CA. I went ahead and used 3M Scotch Weld. I really love this as an epoxy. I didn't use too much, but I wanted to use epoxy to get a nice secure bond, considering we'll be putting a pretty hot power setup in this. So, like I said, first step, you get that in there, slide it in. You really can't mess up the orientation. A lot of times this is a pretty involved step because you want to measure both and make sure it's aligned right. However, there's a hole in the horizontal stabilizer for the rudder kind of rod, control rod to go through. So when you slide that in, you have to match up that hole that this goes through. So there's really not much room for error there. So let's flip it around and I'll show you the next step. All right, so what I wanted to show you is this assembly right here. So it's this block, the rudder control arm, the horn that's already on there, and the wire that controls the rudder basically. So this whole contraption comes assembled in the box. And so the second step is you need to fish the rudder rod through the horizontal stabilizer and then glue this to these rear formers on the fuselage, and then glue this no, you wouldn't glue this yet because this piece isn't there yet. That's step 3. But basically, it's there's tabs that this goes into. You really can't mess this up because it kind of clicks in, and again, I epoxied it in here after the rudder rod is pushed through the horizontal stabilizer, and that's basically step 2. So what you'll see here is that this controls the rudder, and the control horn is already on there. So when you get the servos hooked up, that's how you're going to have your steering and your rudder control. So step 3, I'll turn it over here in a second, but is this piece right here that kind of sandwiches everything together. So let's turn it over and I'll talk to you about the back piece. All right, so this back piece is this piece right here, and then this wooden piece. After that contraption with the rudder control rod is in and through the horizontal stabilizer, you kind of clamp it, I guess, by gluing this onto the back of the assembly, which effectively sandwiches the horizontal stabilizer in there. And again, there's really no way to mess up this orientation because that long to curve piece on the bottom notches into the bottom here, so you know when you have it just right. It notches in perfectly. Now, I almost missed this, so this is a word to the wise. There is an elevator joining rod that connects both of the elevators, and that has to be in here when you put this big last piece on. I almost missed it. In fact, in the manual, it's bolded, and I still almost missed it. But luckily I was kind of test fitting everything and caught it at the last minute. So that next step, gluing this piece on to sandwich everything in. So next, you can kind of do this in whatever order. Next, you would then join the elevators. You can then do the CA hinges and get the elevators on while epoxying the elevators to the elevator joiner wire. So that's fine. I also, you can't see the elevator control horn. It's on the back there. I did that before I did the CA hinges, so it would be a little bit easier. But then you have the vertical stabilizer. Again, this just slides in to this piece right here, and you epoxy that in there just like you did the horizontal stabilizer. Now, another word to the wise here. Because the rudder has to be joined to the rudder control rod here, you really can't push this forward. So the vertical stabilizer, I had to slide the whole thing back about 1/16 of an inch, and I noticed this as soon as I put it in with the glue. Now, the Scotch weld has like a 20-minute setup time, so I had enough time. But I was able to see I needed to slide it back a little bit, and then we were good to go. Once that's dry, you can use epoxy to join the rudder itself to the control rod, and then do the CA hinges, and then you're all set. So that is the tail end. All right, here's what I wanted to kind of bring some attention to. We talked about the rudder control rod. You can see that going up there, and you can see where it goes through the hole, through the tail end, and as well through the horizontal stabilizer. And you can also see this is the rudder and steering control arm right here that's going back through the fuse to the servo. The instructions want you to use one of these easy connectors where you would just kind of mount it to the horn and fish the control rod through and then tighten it down. And so if you guys are building this, you have the instruction manual. You can look, and there's actual pictures where they want you to mount it like this, and you can see if you did it on top of that horn, you'd be able to run that control rod right through and be fine. So does this raise any alarms to anyone here? And you see the top of that is a Phillips little screwdriver, and you guys have probably used easy connectors before. You fish the rod through and you tighten the top down, and that's how you get your connection. So let's take a screwdriver here, and how would I tighten that easy connector? Because the horizontal stabilizer is right here. So you literally, if you were to do that as it shows in the manual, you have an easy connector right here. You literally have, 2/3/16 of an inch. So obviously that isn't going to work. And obviously, maybe they hooked that up before they put in the horizontal stabilizer. That's a possibility. But the problem is, even if you do it that way, you'll never be able to readjust it. So there are some things that you can do. And this is what I emailed Maxford USA, and I basically explained all that to them, and they replied with, "Hey, thanks for the pointer." That's literally all they said. So there's two ways to do this, and I'll tell you which way I'm going to do. First, you could, this isn't tightened yet, so you can really you can move that up and then have the easy connector upside down. Then use, like a wrench to tighten the top end on top, and then you would be able to have your screwdriver to tighten it from down here. So that's really the best way, and that's really what it should be in the manual. So I'm not going to use an easy connector. I'm going to use a ball link, and I will you can see this rod isn't threaded, so I'm actually going to use a small, I think it's a 450 size ball link, and bolt that on there and cut the rod to size and epoxy the ball link to the rod. So that's what I'm going to do. I expect to never, again, I'm not going to be able to adjust it, but after I put the fairings and everything on, I don't want to go back and take the fairings off and readjust it. So that's the word to the rise. Best way is to mount this control arm higher and mount the easy connector upside down if you want to go that route. So that's what I wanted to fill you guys in on this back part. And in the next episode, you'll see how I have that all hooked up, and we'll go over mounting the rudder and elevator servos and getting all the controls hooked up for this part of the build. So Guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in a few days for episode 3.